Welcome back to Tousi TV, your global news channel. I'm Tousi, and this is your latest news update coming from, Afghanistan, but also now Pakistan, because both are getting hit by each other. It's all kicking off. A second day in a row, the escalation has now led to an all-out attack by Pakistan against Afghanistan. The Afghans, the Taliban, have also been hitting Pakistan. I'm going to explain exactly what's going on here. It's all a little bit confusing for a lot of people who used to think that Pakistan and Afghanistan were kind of friends. Not really. And we have a lot of videos to show you guys. There's also another breaking news coming from Egypt. When it comes to the Qatari delegations who were on their way to the Gaza peace talks, an accident has occurred, which we will cover in the next few minutes. First things first, heavy clashes still ongoing along several points, mostly of the Durand line between Pakistan forces and the Taliban in Afghanistan. Now, the Taliban in Afghanistan are poking the bear. What they've been trying to do is they are trying to impose an Islamic state in Pakistan by destabilizing the existing Pakistani government. And for the first time ever between the two sides, since the creation of Pakistan, which is a fake country, it's an acronym, there is now a direct conflict between the two countries. And Afghanistan have new allies with the Taliban because they got the others. They got China and the others are involved. Let's go to the first clip. It's all happening in the dark, so you could hear mostly the sound, but seeing footage is slightly difficult. Let's go. So essentially, Afghanistan under the new Taliban regime since 2021 have not been too happy, and they want their neighbors to be more like them. Essentially, obviously with the Islamic Caliphate of Afghanistan, they thought that if they now have a new relationship with Russia, China, and now India, they could use that against Pakistan and somehow defeat Pakistan. They can't directly defeat Pakistan because obviously Pakistan has nuclear. But the Afghan Taliban factions have been trying to destabilize the Pakistani regime in recent days, poking the bear. Pakistan said enough is enough. We're going to come and hit you because you're a bunch of weirdos. But Afghans have new allies, which is not really too good for Pakistan. I'm going to explain all this shortly. Let's go to new footage showing the clashes between Taliban fighters and the Pakistani army along the Afghan and Pakistani border. I'm going to show you the map as well to show you what we are dealing with and where and why. It's all becoming a little bit unnecessary. Why do they always have to put music in the background? So weird. It's a very Pakistani thing to do, by the way. The Pakistani media and also the Pakistani new media are always obsessed with putting soundtracks behind their military footage. They did the same thing when they were fighting against India, which, by the way, they got annihilated by the Indian army. And somehow the Pakistanis declared victory. But they kept putting music in the background. Stop putting songs on a military video. Anyway, the Afghan forces in Taliban have now announced that they have also retaliated and launched attacks against Pakistan at 7 points along the border. Now, obviously, rightly so, in this situation, I know it's very difficult for a lot of, you can see it on the map where they've been hitting, near Islamabad and Peshawar and all the other places in Pakistan. For a lot of normal people who live in democratic societies, they're looking at this, they're like, do we have to pick a side? Should we just let them do it? In reality, there's a bit of a complicated situation. It's very important for people to be aware of what's happening right now in that part of the world. Because if you live in the West, Western European countries, North America, Australia, New Zealand, wherever you are, it's very important to know what's going on geopolitically, because don't be surprised if a new wave of mass migration happens now from both sides, using the excuse of, oh, there was a bit of an airstrike in my country, so I just brought all my family from Afghanistan to Germany or France, right? Also, you need to be aware of the militants who are coming from different countries to your countries in Europe and in Americas or Australia, right? Now, the reality is, Pakistan is technically an ally. Right? Technically. Afghanistan, the Taliban, that were the creation of Mujahideen, who were basically funded and supported by CIA during the Cold War to fight against the Russians. That kind of backfired. The Taliban was created, obviously also partly Al-Qaeda. That's a whole different thing. Having said that, we decided to keep Pakistan close while also having India close, both nuclear. Everybody ignored Afghanistan. It's just a desert, bunch of tribalists, as Winston Churchill warned the world. People forgot about Afghanistan, even before 2001, the attack by the Americans, and even afterwards. The Taliban are back. The Taliban want to impose their Islamic Caliphate in Pakistan. Now, you might say a lot of things about Pakistan. It's a corrupt country. It's not even a real country. A bunch of weirdos. In this situation, you don't really want to back the Taliban. Mostly because Pakistan, who've been a little bit dodgy, let's just say, despite getting funding from America and the West, and also let's not forget the CIA at times asked them to basically create some Islamist groups, fight the enemy, backfired. We have been trying so hard to keep them close, Pakistan, to not let them get close to China. We even basically were nice to them, the West, when it came to Pakistan versus India. And India is supposed to be a natural ally to the West. So India got closer to BRICS. They were literally part of BRICS. Pakistan then started cozying up to the Chinese Communist Party. So we're like, okay, so we're going to have to keep the Pakistanis happy. In fact, the British government can't deport Pakistanis from Britain to Pakistan because the Pakistanis don't want them, even though there is a treaty. And we can't deport them because the British government don't want to anger the Pakistanis. You see the problem, right? The Taliban, who have been poking Pakistan, is because they are now closer to China, Russia, and India. So Pakistan is like, well, this is not good. Are we on our own? It seems like Pakistan are now on their own. America could get involved. Not directly with military, but basic support. Well, we will wait. Anyway, go back to some of the footage. Intense clashes erupted at several points. Let me show you what's going on. And then we're going to talk about what's going on in Egypt with the Qatari delegation. Insanity. They love their god, apparently, being greater than the other gods. Anyway, as I said, Taliban have been courting India, China, and Russia, which has basically left Islamabad and Pakistan on their own. Since 2021, the Taliban changed their strategy, which has been quite clever, actually. So when it comes to the relationship between Pakistan and the other countries, there are a few things to mention. So there's been the refugee and migrant retaliation. Pakistan obviously expelled and deported over 1 million Afghans since 2023 back to Afghanistan. Pakistan said, we don't want these guys here. Let's not forget, by the way, the other country next door also deported millions of Afghans. Iran. Everybody's deporting Afghans back to Afghanistan. The Taliban didn't like it because the Taliban like, well, we can't really manage everybody coming back, even though we would like to kill so many of them because they left Afghanistan, they're traitors. It's been a little bit too bureaucratic for the Afghan government. They don't like that. There was also the push by the Taliban in Afghanistan to destabilize Pakistan anyway. But the reality is, now with this new relationship that the Taliban have with Putin and Xi Jinping, and of course even Modi, it's making things a little bit complicated for the West as well. So the Taliban have been sending reinforcements to fight back against the Pakistani army. Let's go to the latest footage. Now, one of the reasons that this channel exists, and we have to explain everything, is because firstly, the mainstream media, even if they do report every now and then on something like this, they're never going to explain to you. They don't want people to know exactly what's going on geopolitically, because you will start questioning things about what's going on in your own countries. It might seem complicated, but at the end of the day, it's just black and white tribalism. As I said, to simplify this, the West goes to Afghanistan to fight against the Soviet Union. They create Islamist Mujahideen. Some of them become Al-Qaeda, some of them become Taliban mostly. Backfires, we fight against the Taliban, we kick them out, Taliban comes back. Meanwhile, we have Pakistan as basically an ally, but we don't trust Pakistan because we still want to have India close. Pakistan gets close to China anyway. Taliban comes back. The same Taliban that was used to fight against Russia are now friends with Russia. Still catching up, right? And now the Taliban are friends with China. The same China that were also trying to be friends with Pakistan. So Pakistan might be losing China a little bit as this conflict escalates. Afghanistan have been launching major attacks now against Pakistan. As I said, 7 different border locations have been hit. This is according to the Afghan Ministry of Defense and confirmed even by Al Jazeera. A Taliban source has now said, our forces are engaged in clashes with Pakistan in 7 different provinces. Afghanistan now claim to be the victims, even though it was the Taliban that started this. And I hate the fact that I have to say this, because usually it's Pakistan that starts troubles, usually. In this case, actually, Pakistan did nothing wrong. It's a very rare thing to say. The Taliban have now asked their allies in Russia and China to help fight against the Pakistanis. I'm not really sure that's going to go well. People in the live chat are saying this is a mess. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess, yeah. It's sort of like a cycle of doom, especially when it comes to the relationship between Russia, the Afghans, the West. It's going around and round. And China, always be aware of China, because they want to be everyone's friends, because they want to take advantage of everything and everybody. China is the same country that comes and says, we could mediate between Russia and Ukraine. We could create peace between Israel and Palestine. What they really mean is that we are the Chinese Communist Party. We're not going to take a side, even though we're going to be helping one side privately, behind closed doors. Whoever wins and whoever loses, we're going to come and pick up the pieces. It's just business. That's basically China's approach to anything in the world. The expansion of the Chinese Communist Party empire in the Middle East, in Central Africa, in South America has been the exact same strategy all over again. Try to be seen as, we're not doing anything wrong, it's just business. If anybody dies or loses, we'll pick up the pieces. We'll sell them, basically, second hand. Intense fighting continues again between the Pakistani army and the Taliban nutters alongside the border. Let's go to this, and then we're going to explain what's going on shortly in Egypt, with the Qatari delegations having a bit of an accident. They are obsessed with Alan Snackbar. Now, the Afghan Taliban have now started to post photos on social media of Pakistani soldiers that have now been captured in tonight's intense fighting at the border. Some of them, of course, have now been eliminated, and they seem to be very much tech savvy and social media savvy, because they've been posting all this on Telegram, on TikTok, on Instagram. You know, they're using captions and everything else. What they don't do, the Taliban in Afghanistan, is they don't really put music and soundtrack in the background, unlike the Pakistanis. I don't think they really care much about music. The Taliban, as we said, they have continued over the last few hours to launch attacks. They call it self-defense, but I'm not really sure it could be described as self-defense, considering the Taliban started this. Again, I hate the fact that this whole situation makes me sound like I'm defending Pakistan. But technically speaking, only in this situation, it's Taliban's fault. I'm not really sure what they're thinking, but that's the plan apparently. Let's go. Nutters. Yeah, people who've joined late in the live chat. We're going to get your reaction in the live chat shortly, by the way. They're saying, why are they doing this? It's a very simple thing. Publicly, Afghanistan says, well, they don't admit, but the Taliban factions have said, we want to impose an Islamic state in Pakistan. They want a caliphate in Pakistan. Imagine a caliphate with a nuclear bomb. Whatever you think of Pakistan right now, a corrupt regime, at times sponsor terrorism, and they also kill innocent Hindus. Still, relatively speaking, better than the whole country becoming an Islamic state, directly a caliphate, because it's not really that good, because you've already seen what the Taliban have been doing in Afghanistan with limited resources. Imagine the Taliban with more resources. It will be out of control. Now, Pakistan is suffocating right now in the region because the West can't really be seen publicly to be loving Pakistan, even though we've been backing Pakistan, right? Taliban was once a proxy of Pakistan, the same Taliban who are now in charge of Afghanistan. But Pakistan is basically losing China to the Taliban. The Taliban and Afghanistan have been invited into BRICS, the Eastern Globalist bloc. Moscow and Kremlin have now made their first bold move, formally recognizing the Taliban as a government. They were the first to do. And then obviously everyone else started doing it. India followed the same. They also reopened their embassy in Kabul. Pakistan said, what on earth are you doing? We thought we were friends. They were never friends, obviously, but business-wise. But Pakistan was more angry at China because they've been selling out to China. The Chinese Communist Party in Pakistan had massive influence. Beijing started offering cash to the Taliban, build roads, infrastructure to help them. Because for China, it's always about money. It's business. Pakistan didn't like it, but Pakistan still stayed close to China. Anyway, going back to some of the footage, Pakistani jets actively still operating over the skies in Afghanistan. Let's go to that. There's a lot of reaction in the live chat. It's funny because when it comes to the question of who will win, people think just because Pakistan has nuclear, they're going to use nuclear against Afghanistan. Pakistan won't need to use nuclear against Afghanistan. The Afghans won't really be able to harm Pakistan. The Taliban are a bunch of amateur nutters who can only oppress innocent civilians in Afghanistan, and that's how they took over. And because Joe Biden was an incompetent idiot, despite intelligence telling him, don't withdraw your forces now, he still did it anyway. That's the only reason the Taliban managed to come back. The Taliban are not powerful enough or professional enough to, for example, take over Pakistan. Whatever they say, it's a lie. Anyway, going to the Ministry of Interior in Pakistan, they've said Afghanistan is playing a game of fire and blood, the threads of which are woven with our internal enemy. The people of Pakistan stand like an iron wall alongside the brave armed forces. Okay, so the Pakistani government seems to be a little bit drunk as well tonight. I don't understand the populist Muslim countries who keep using our people as an excuse. The same thing that the Islamic Republic of Iran always do. When they fight against an enemy, they say, our people are standing strong. No, it's not your people. Your people are hiding. It's your army. It's your revolutionary guard. The Pakistani government said, everybody in Pakistan is ready. Like, no, they're not. Most of them don't even know how to shoot. It's your army. And you don't even need to use your people. Your army are good enough to defeat the Taliban. But of course, they always have to speak in this poetic jihadi nonsense way, fighting against the other jihadis. See the issue, right? Anyway, the Pakistani Air Force launched the strikes again against the Taliban positions in Afghanistan. This is, again, I think the jets flying over Kabul, which, by the way, is impressive, that the fact that they could just fly around Kabul and nobody could stop them. also the Taliban have already declared victory. I'm not joking. Just got this update. Let me just quickly show you this first. They have declared victory. What on earth is going on? This is absolute insanity. All right. I just said the Pakistanis are drunk, but I think the Afghans are high on drugs again. This is what happens, by the way. When you create a monster, you need to take responsibility. Pakistan essentially created the Taliban. The Taliban was used as a proxy for Pakistan for a long time, okay? Now, the Cold War days are over. Pakistan had been very quiet since the return of the Taliban, apart from obviously deporting over 1 million Afghans from their country. They don't do anything, even though they're neighbors. They didn't say anything about the Islamic Republic basically stealing the American weapons left by Joe Biden. Some of the stuff that I showed you, the armored vehicles that were they're being driven by the Afghans, they were the American armored vehicles in the footage I showed you earlier. Now, if we go to some breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, we now have confirmation and we have verified 3 Qatari members of the delegation on their way in Egypt to the Gaza peace talks, to negotiate the finalization of peace talks, have now been killed in a car accident near Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. Now, early reports suggest that the victims were officially members of the Qatari Prime Minister's team who were on their way to the peace talks. Now, nobody has taken responsibility. As far as we know, this is just a coincidence and it's just a random car crash, but usually there's no such thing as an accident. Let's go to this video. I think we have subtitles for it as well. See what they say.
الأنباء الأولية الآن وفاة 3 في العناية المركزة.
More in the hospital as well.
يعني في المستشفى. حادث مروري يودي بحياة
car accident apparently.
من أفراد الوفد القطري في 50 كيلو. هذه هي صورة السيارة الآن. نحن الآن انقلبت بهم السيارة ولأن الأخبار بتجيلي على الهواء. فالوفد القطري 50 كيلو.
Sharm el-Sheikh. That's where the negotiations were going to be for Gaza. They're dead now, so they're going to have to send new people.
تفاصيل واضحة. وفاة 3 و3 إصابات. طبعا تباعا هيجي لنا تأكيد الأخبار، ولكن الخبر المؤكد أن الحادث قد وقع. الخبر المؤكد أنه 50 كيلو.
So even the Arabs are not really confident to blame any obvious group. So there are speculations.
ولكن لن أذيعها إلا عندما نتأكد من هذا الخبر. الآن على الهواء مباشرة هذا خبر نحن الآن نذيعه على حضراتكم، وليس منتشرا لسه ولا حد يمكن يعني عنده تفاصيله. سنتابع التفاصيل ونأمل يعني طبعا السلامة للناس التي أصيبت، ويعني نطلب الرحمة لكل من توفى في هذا الحادث.
Okay, so we don't know the full circumstances of how this alleged car crash happened, but the pictures that we've been receiving is, unless they were driving really fast, not sure, but we also need to wait for a couple of days to see the consequences, because the negotiations will be ongoing for the Gaza peace talks for phase 2, phase 3, which, by the way, we're going to have some updates in the morning, because the ceasefire is not going too well, because Hamas have already broken it. We'll wait for the reaction tomorrow and get the confirmation. But if you want to see whether this was an accident or not, we'll wait to see in the next day or two to see how it affects the negotiations. Are the Qataris just going to replace them with some other random delegation? Are they going to still use a car, or are they going to use something else to get there? Or is everything going to be affecting the negotiations? Delays, or the whole thing falling apart? Who will it benefit? Will it be Mossad? Or will it be benefiting, maybe, perhaps, the Qataris themselves, perhaps the Islamists, don't really want actual peace, even though they've agreed to it, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be Mossad. It could also be the other side to make it seem like it's Mossad. Because, usually the first finger you want to point is Mossad, right? In Qatari allegations it must be Mossad. But it could also be the Islamist side saying, well, actually, we've agreed to this thing. We don't really want this. We don't want Hamas to disarm. You just only have to wait for a couple of days to see how it affects the negotiations. Anyway, so there is some reaction here while we wait for more. The Afghans are, as I said, they declared victory for some reason. God knows why. Ivan says, mate, you have started a new war. I know, I keep starting new wars and President Trump finishes them, apparently. Taliban says, I don't want neither Pakistan or Afghanistan to win. I'm pretty sure they're Islamists, both sides. Well, Afghanistan is an Islamic state. Pakistan isn't, but so yeah. Technically, they're both Muslim, I get it, but there's a technical differentiation between a caliphate and a corrupt republic. Plus, North Pakistan is safe haven for Taliban fighters. That's where literally the whole thing kicked off. The Taliban were the proxies for Pakistan. There's been a bit of a breakup. They've fallen out. The Afghan Taliban are now hitting their former bosses. Kevin said, well, India support Balochistan and the Taliban study. So, well, yeah, I mean, India, not directly in this conflict, but in recent days and weeks, India have been working with Afghanistan only as part of their BRICS relationship. But India also backed Balochistan, so so it's India would do anything to piss off Pakistan, which I get it. Fair enough, India. Festival 100 says that both Islam sides, we shall fight for you, our mighty God. Leave me out. God says, will leave me out of this. You smelly people will be on your own, but I will save you some goats. Imagine. Christian says, despite the older civilizations being from places in the Middle East, the modern countries in the region are culturally 500 years behind everyone else. That's a very good point, isn't it? It's because you can't really say places like what you now would call Afghanistan or Pakistan, which are not technically Middle East, but I know what you mean, the wider region. Or let's just say, I don't know, for example, North Yemen, right? The wider Middle East. Those entities were not part of what we would call the old civilizations because they were provinces, part of either the Persian Empire or the Greek Empire or, whatever. They never had any autonomy and they never had the actual, what we call the civilization part of it. They were just part of the empires, but they didn't. It's like you had Rome, but just because you had the actual Rome doesn't mean every part of the world that was part of the Roman Empire was as civilized as people in Rome. And, we call civilized in a very ancient standards, not to our standards. They weren't going around holding doors for people or driving on the right side. But the reality is that most of the places you see were not affected or influenced by the biblical religions. So the places you now see were not fully influenced or converted to Christianity. Obviously, Judaism was different. The whole journey of Judaism was supposed to be about children of Israel. It wasn't about expanding Judaism. It wasn't about converting people into Judaism, but Christianity was about getting people to become Christian. The journey went different places. It didn't necessarily go to Saudi Arabia. It wasn't really successful in the desert. So, and if you look back to where Pakistan is or where obviously Afghanistan is or Sudan, although Sudan was actually, there were enough people who converted to Christianity at the time. Then Muhammad came and filled the gap in the market. Muhammad came and obviously they created their own tribal faith and ideology. And it had a very different worldview to the biblical religions, the Abrahamic religions. You had obviously the journey of Noah and Abraham and Moses and Jesus. That was one thing. They were all connected. Then Muhammad obviously separate. Obviously Muhammad still tried to self-identify as Abrahamic, but just because you self-identify as something doesn't mean it's true. That's why they are backward. Doesn't necessarily mean because they're Muslim. It's because they didn't become what we call culturally Christian or biblical cultures. or Roman culture. I mean, everything goes back to the influence of Rome, even when it comes to this spread of Christianity. What do India, China, Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan think about this war? So it's yeah, so they're all slightly different. If I were to speak on their behalf, none of them are going to get involved publicly in terms of vocally, but India will quietly be back in Afghanistan, not really supporting them, but they're not going to say, don't attack Pakistan, right? Because they hate Pakistan. China are now making deals with the Taliban because of BRICS. Even though China have been trying to keep Pakistan close as well, but they see a better future with Afghanistan because Afghanistan is closer to Russia. Iran kind of hate both. They kind of hate both sides. They're the Iranian side, but they would stay out of it. But they would probably quietly hope that Afghanistan will be successful, even though they know they won't be. Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, obviously, they won't say anything because they don't want to anger the Taliban to somehow attack them as well. But they won't need to even think about any of this. Afghans won't really have any ambition to try to attack that side, the north, and convert them. They only care about Pakistan basically because they're angry. Pakistan were using the Taliban as a proxy, but not anymore. And Afghanistan, the Taliban think, well, Pakistan are also Muslim. Why can't they become a caliphate like the rest of us? You can't win. You can't defeat Pakistan. Stop being crazy. It's like when Pakistan thought they could defeat India. Like, play with your own kids on your own level. Calm down. Anyway, we're going to continue this conversation with the members of Tousi TV Plus on our exclusive chat forum. If you want to join us, you can go on tousi.tv. It's down here on the description on the Taliban. Or download the Tousi TV app today. We're going to go on our private Discord server. If you become a member, you get access to it. On the left-hand side, it's called Post Live Chat. Or if you're using a mobile device, it will look like this. Post Live Chat under the voice channel. I will be there in the next few minutes to continue this with you guys. You can talk to me directly if you want a video call, or just you don't have to show your face. You can talk to me directly. Any questions, any things you have on your mind. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya Tousi, and we are the media.